Happy to have you with us. We'll talk about what's on the agenda. We're going to talk about a unique program also, which needs to be addressed. Today, we're going to be having 3 companies pitching that are eligible for a very interesting program run by United States Air Force, and so we'll have to touch upon that just briefly. So without further ado, next slide. So Smart Cities, June 17, 2021. A little bit about the showcase. Our position is to connect public sector corporations and investors with deep tech startups. Our mission is pretty simple. We want to be part of the success of deep tech startups and deep tech innovation as it reaches market. And of course, in order to do this, we need to improve the connections between, on the one hand, the innovations and the innovators, and on the other hand, the stakeholders, those that enable deep tech to actually come to fruition. And the way we accomplish our mission is through 2 primary activities. One are through the monthly showcase events. The second is from guided introductions, and also looking forward to the very beginning of 2022, our annual summit. Deep Tech Showcase itself is part of an organization called the Deep Tech Group, which includes EU-focused non-dilutive funding from our sister company Argentum, from our other sister company, our Eagle Point Funding, focusing on US federal grants and R&D contracts for non-life science technologies. And together, we're in a unique position to help discover the best tech that's out there globally, with a strong presence in EU and EU-affiliated countries, as well as in the United States. Our efforts include beyond the showcase and Eagle Point Funding and Argentum, and includes also studios and strategies, as well as a few other supportive measures in order to help these deep tech startups see market. So jumping into Deep Tech Showcase, we are a business community, which includes, as I mentioned before, innovators and stakeholders. The reason we're focused on deep tech as opposed to any other technology out there is because we know and we believe that deep tech has the ability to solve today's and tomorrow's unsolved challenges. And that is because the unique innovations themselves address them in a dual use market, meaning both for the public sector, something that governments deal with, and which has obviously a dramatic impact as well as dramatic business impact, but also in the private sector. Why we're doing what we're doing? Well, the gate theory says that if you have an injury, the first thing you do is you start rubbing your injury because you don't want to feel the pain. Instead, you want to block the pathways to your mind, to your brain, which are saying there's pain out there. Instead, you try to calm it with a nice patting of your skin or rubbing of your skin to block out the pain. Unfortunately, that works negatively as well. In the world of startups and innovation, meeting stakeholders, stakeholders are inundated with a lot of companies that are looking for money, looking for pilot contracts, looking for partnerships, and their technology is not necessarily what you're looking for as a stakeholder. And therefore, what will happen is it blocks the gate. And what doesn't come through are those innovative startups. And one of the reasons it might not come through is maybe the technology is fantastic, but the UX or the design is not so fantastic. And this is important because in order for deep tech to really reach market, there absolutely needs to be partnerships and capital and contracting vehicles in order to enable these startups to be successful. Our startups fit 3 criteria: deep tech, as the name entails, dual use technology, private and public sector applications of their technology, and these companies have won government funding for their R&D, whether it's US government or other. Our definition of stakeholders splits into 3. Public sector, which could be a federal, a state, or city representatives. This event is going to be pretty heavy on the city, though there are some federal and state also represented here. Major corporations, tech scouts, are looking for that next generation technology, either to take on as a customer or to work together with a partnership or on a prime contract, or even for a merger and acquisition, and investors for capital. Our service is split into three things that we do in order to help the companies get ready. The first is from the strategies and studio side, making sure that they understand their market, also and understand how to tailor their pitch, whether they're speaking to government, to investors, or to corporations. Guided introductions. The real truth about the showcase is that it's a network for the stakeholders as much as it is for the innovators. And our job is to understand what the stakeholders are looking for and help them find those tech companies that meet those criteria. And of course, it's to enable with a place to meet through events like these and others. So we run a monthly showcase, which has a unique panel in that the panelists that you will meet today are a mixture of public sector, venture capital and investors, and corporations. And all of course, the companies that are pitching are deep tech, typically around Series A plus minus, though some will be at an earlier and some will even be at a later stage. We have a full calendar through to January 2022, including ending with our Deep Tech Summit, which should be a live event in Las Vegas. Our upcoming showcase is focused on energy. So if you're interested in this topic, please be in touch with us sooner rather than later, because July 15th is just right around the corner. There will be 3 topics. As is our custom, there will be an open topic, which will not necessarily be connected to energy, and then followed by 2 energy-specific topics, renewable and alternative energy and supporting systems. So let's meet our panelists and our pitching companies. So for the first session, we're joined by Kenny Visig from Google, Sodi Yoshi from Mitsubishi Heavy Industries and from their venture arm, Dana Jensen from the United States Air Force, Tina Tasukawang, sorry for butchering your name, from GCI, Susan Fletcher from Prime Movers Lab, and Cassandra Carruthers from Upheaval Investments. The companies pitching, this will be our shortest panel of the night, are Sereniasat, DataShapes, Argenteel, and Precursor SBC. After that, our second session, we'll have a set of new panelists, Vider Pereira from Zoom Global Smart Cities, Edward Bose, who is from the city of Patterson, Kenny Visig and so will be continuing on, Dominic Pampa from Arizona Commerce Authority, and from the city of Mesa, Harry Meyer, and Tyler Svitak from the Colorado Smart Cities Alliance. Companies pitching at the event are Waycare, EAC Edge, Unola, Optipulse, VIA, and Spare Devices. And for our final session, we'll be joined by a set of panelists, including Bob Christopher from Diamond Ed Ventures, Reese Schroeder from Allstate Strategic Ventures, Dominic Papa and Harry Meyer will be staying on with us, Adam Weiss from Mobileye, Taylor Ogan from Snowball Capital, Robert Ethier from Activate, from their investment wing, Jeff Errett from Moog Aircraft, Charles Crowfer from Siemens Digital Industry Software, and Edward Bose also will be continuing on with this panel. The companies pitching will be eLink Air, Dodd Incorporation, Target Arm, Cyanic Energy, Cognata, and Robotire. So before we start off, it's something we have to address. So we mentioned before the Deep Tech Group, and we're going to talk about a unique opportunity. There will be a number of companies that are pitching today, which are going to be talking about a program called TACFI, or Tactical Funding. This is significant because if you're an investor on the board, or for that matter, if you're from United States Air Force, then you should pay special attention to these companies. You can skip over this one. TACFI is a program from Air Force's Ventures. Air Force Ventures are associated with AFWorks, more or less one and the same organization, though different focus, where they offer a funding enhancement program. This is for companies that have won a certain program called AFWorks, and the Air Force Ventures are offering match money for late stage companies that have already won AFWorks, to help them bridge between prototype and product, also known as the Innovation Valley of Death. These are companies that already have a sole source contract with a tier 1 customer, namely the United States Air Force in sight. They already have an MOU signed between the stakeholder from the Air Force and the company itself. And we'll go to the next slide to take a little bit more deep look at it. It starts with AFWERX. AFWERX is a program which many of you are probably familiar with, which they run an open topic through the Small Business Innovation Research Program run by the SBA, or Small Business Authority or Association, I always forget. The purpose of this program is to enhance and stimulate the amount of innovation that is coming into the United States Air Force as the United States competes with China, Russia, and other countries across the world to make sure that they're bringing the best technology possible to the warfighter. The Air Force invests in these companies without any sort of dilution. And if all goes well, then it's meant to turn into a contract between the United States Air Force and the innovator. TACFI is there to fill a gap within development. So let's just look at the stages and how it works. First stage starts with applying for AFWERX. You can go to the next slide. The first stage with applying to AFWERX. You can click on that one click at a time. The next stage is getting a phase 1, which is $50,000, which is money there for client discovery. Once you get the phase 1, if you can get an MOU signed, that means there's an interested party within the United States Air Force willing to become a customer, and then it's worth $750,000. So at this point, it's already a significant investment of $800,000. Then for many companies, there's a need for commercialization assistance. TACFI, the program we're going to be talking about just for another 2 minutes before we start the presentation, offers up to $1.7 million, between $375,000 and $1.7 million to match a private sector investment. If you bring private sector money to the table, then the Air Force will consider matching that, and then that will enable for delivering from prototype to product with the commercialization assistance. So a total of $3.4 million, or up to $3.4 million, can be had, of which 1.7 million, or half of it, is non-dilutive. Next slide. Eligibility. So a company has to have won AFWERX phase 2, which we just saw on the previous slide, and they need to be more than 90 days into receiving their phase 2. And they also, of course, have to acquire or they have to get a letter of signed intent from an investor that says that they are interested in helping with the match program. Works pretty simply. It's a one-to-one match. For every dollar that the private sector investor brings in, AFWERX will match with $1. The funding range, as I mentioned before, is between $375,000 to $1.7 million from the Air Force, and then a match from the investor. What this means for an investor is pretty simple. It's kind of obvious, but I'll state it anyways. You know that your investment is going to be matched, and that's not going to come on expense of your influence over the company or your seat at the board. And that the technology obviously has been pre-vetted, and that there's a very clear need in the public sector market, but also the Air Force, and the nature of the program in AFWERX is they're investing primarily in dual-use technology. So there should be a very large market also in the public sector, and you're going to meet a number of companies like this today. And you'll know the companies as they will present themselves as such. And of course, it gives you an opportunity to invest in a company that already has a tier 1 customer lined up. The catch is, and then that's why it's something that needs to be addressed now, is that the deadline for a letter of intent is June 30th, 2021.